Welcome to the motherfucking relay. We're covering today's top boxing news.
Okay, we'll start with this. It would seem that unbeaten up-and-comer in the women's atomweight division, WBC interim champion of Mexico, Camila Zamarano, will be returning to action next month on the 18th, south of the border, in defense of her WBC interim title. Camila campaigns in the atomweight division, where currently Tina Ruprecht reigns as undisputed champion. Sporting a professional record of 12 wins with no losses and no draws, 1 recorded knockout, Camila is sort of a boxing prodigy of sorts. She's only 17 years old, but already she's in the queue to fight for a full title. Her opponent, Sitthichai, sports a professional record of 12 wins with 4 losses and no draws, 4 knockouts, having been knocked out 3 times in 16 professional bouts, currently on a 2-fight winning streak. Last in action in September of last year, opposite the ring, a girl whose name I can't pronounce. Sothita was busy last year. She fought 3 times last year, but she has yet to fight this one. The victories over mostly pedestrian-level opponents and journeywomen. Any halfway decent fighter that Sothita fought likely beat her. She's got 2 losses to the same fighter in Japan's own Umi Ishikawa, who knocked her out both times they fought. And another knockout loss to Japan's own Yugo Kuroki, currently reigns as WBA champion in the minimum weight division. As stated, any halfway decent fighter that Sothita has fought seems to have beaten her. Now she's going to be fighting Camila Zamarano, and I expect the same thing to happen. I expect that Camila will beat Sothita. Camila, who had a very busy year last year. She fought 4 times last year, and she's already fought 2 times this one. 1 in January and again in June. This fight in October will be Camila's 3rd fight of this year, a defense of her WBC interim title. Needless to say that I expect Camila to win, but there is a problem here. There's a problem with someone so young having any version of an alphabet title, even if it's just an interim title. Because the interim title acts as a segue to fight for the full one. And currently, Tina Ruprecht, who is a lot more experienced than young Camila, she has all the marbles. She has all the belts. So what is the point in Camila holding an interim title if she's not going to use it to fight Tina? Nor should she, by the way. I don't believe that Camila is anywhere near ready for somebody like Tina Ruprecht, the 2-division champion and currently undisputed at atomweight. Still speaks to the problem. I don't believe that at this very young age, only 12 fights into her pro career, she should be holding any version of an alphabet title, because that just adds pressure on her to face a Tina Ruprecht. She should be allowed to develop on her own time, on her own schedule, and adding alphabet titles to the mix complicates things needlessly. How to best describe Camila Zamarano? She's got the Gabby Fundora thing working for her, to where Camila is very tall and very long for the light minimum weight division. She's got a lot of height, a lot of length, and she seems to know how to use it, much like what you see from Gabby Fundora, though she's noticeably younger than Gabby. Like I said, she's only 17. So this is a fighter that could move through the ranks from light minimum to light fly, super fly, so on and so forth, because of her physical dimensions, that she's got a big frame. Though what she needs at this point in the juncture, more than an interim title, she needs more experience. She needs more rounds in the bank, more fights against better fighters. There's nothing wrong with the kind of fighters that she's been fighting so far. Those are the kind of fighters you expect a fighter to fight in the early stages of their career. She needs to be brought along gradually because she's very young. She hasn't faced the best the light minimum weight division has to offer, but she's gonna need to if she is to one day be ready for Tina Ruprecht. Here and now, I advise against that fight. In spite of that interim title, her handlers need to keep her away from Tina. That is what they appear to be doing with this fight. Instead of pushing to fight for all the marbles at light minimum, she's making a defense of the interim title. She better make some more. And so I expect young Camila to do the business next month on the 18th. I expect her to beat Sothita, but beyond that, she should not fight Tina. She should not pursue it. She's not ready for a fight like that, and I don't think she's gonna be for another year, year and a half, maybe more. Over to Oscar De La Hoya's Clapback Thursday, where he talked about Canelo Alvarez and he talked about Dana White, but he also talked about his old buddy, Richard Schaefer. He doesn't often bring him up these days. This was a rare Richard Schaefer reference in a Triple Crown verbal slaying of his three least liked people. Oscar De La Hoya unleashed a new Clapback Thursday that ported on Dana White, Richard Schaefer, and Canelo Alvarez. De La Hoya, who formerly promoted Alvarez and employed Schaefer as CEO of Golden Boy Promotions, has engaged in a long-running rivalry feud with UFC CEO Dana White, who staged his first boxing promotion 2 weeks ago with the Crawford vs. Canelo card. And we've already been all through that. What Oscar had to say about Canelo, what Oscar had to say about Dana White. It's the Richard Schaefer part we're going to focus on here. The climactic torching erupted on Schaefer, whom De La Hoya accused of orchestrating a company takeover over a decade ago when powerful manager Al Haymon took his fighters to form the PBC. De La Hoya previously told the LA Times that Schaefer tried to trick him into selling his company to a Kansas investment group while he was in rehab for a third time. I had just checked in, under medication, in a fog, a freaking zombie, and Schaefer took those papers to me and said, "I have a buyer for your company." De La Hoya said in a 2015 interview, "Something just told me not to do it. I got this bad feeling, this intuition. No, I can't. This is my baby. Golden Boy is my baby." Over the years, Richard Schaefer has bounced from place to place, him and his tarnished reputation. Upon the inception of Al Haymon's PBC, Richard Schaefer was a regular fixture over there up until some years ago when things started to go bad. I could tell that something was wrong when Richard Schaefer decided to part ways with the PBC and go off and do his own thing. While that flew largely under the radar of a lot of people, I noticed it. While Schaefer has since moved through stints with UFC fighter John Jones, the Pro Bellum Group, headed by Irish drug cartel figure Daniel Kinahan, Mayweather Promotions, briefly as its CEO before announcing he is with Canelo Alvarez now. Those were his more recent moves. After longtime CEO Leonard Ellerbe stepped down from Mayweather Promotions, it would seem that Floyd hired him in Leonard's place, but that didn't last long, because what's the point in being the CEO of a company that really isn't doing anything, a promotional outfit that isn't promoting anyone? Next thing you know, he pops up in Canelo Alvarez's corner. Oscar stated, to make matters worse, for the entire promotion, you have the ultimate douchebag, Richard Schaefer, who tried to weasel his way back into an industry where he's been canned by everyone, including myself. He tried to insert himself into everywhere that he wasn't wanted. Everything this guy touches turns into shit. He failed with me, Anthem Sports, John Jones, Floyd Mayweather, Pro Bellum. The list goes on. This guy is the biggest dump on the planet. Even though De La Hoya typically seeks to maintain a smile while posting his clapback shows, taking aim at those he perceives as falling short in the sport, the Schaefer call-out was a bit more fierce. I never usually talk poorly about any human being, but this guy tried to screw me over in ways you couldn't believe or imagine, said De La Hoya. Thinking back to all those years when Al Haymon was working with Golden Boy and Richard Schaefer was CEO, what they basically tried to do was tag team Oscar at a time where Oscar was quite vulnerable, strung out on drugs and spiraling out of control, in and out of rehab. What Richard Schaefer and Al Haymon tried to do, what they ended up doing successfully, was usurping a large chunk of the Golden Boy Promotions stable to eventually form what became Al Haymon's PBC. All those guys that became flagship fighters at Al Haymon's PBC, you're talking about Deontay Wilder, Keith Thurman, Errol Spence, Sean Porter, Broner, all of them. Danny Garcia, all of them. Those guys got their start at Golden Boy Promotions, and it was through Richard Schaefer and Al Haymon backdooring Oscar De La Hoya that they were able to funnel a large chunk of that stable over to what became Al Haymon's PBC, what was a crushing blow to Golden Boy Promotions. But Golden Boy survived. They survived because of Canelo. All those years ago, even I couldn't see it coming, that Canelo would go on to become what he became. And in many ways, Canelo Alvarez single-handedly kept Golden Boy Promotions afloat, as nobody else in the Golden Boy Promotions stable at that time was drawing very much or worth very much, save Canelo Alvarez, who was already becoming a bigger and bigger draw year by year.
That's how Golden Boy was able to survive.
Now, Oscar doesn't usually bring up Richard, but if he did it this time, it is because Richard Schaefer has popped up yet again in Canelo Alvarez's corner. What Canelo might need from Richard, I don't know, since it's well established that Richard Schaefer is not to be trusted.
What does Canelo need from him?
There's something to be said about Richard and Al backdooring Oscar De La Hoya, but there's also something to be said about Oscar spiraling out of control at the time.
You can say that they're both weasels. You can say that they're both backstabbing scumbags. But this is an industry full of weasels and backstabbing scumbags. So it behooves you to not be vulnerable, to not be strung out on cocaine, in and out of rehab, spiraling out of control.
If they don't take advantage of you, it'll just be somebody else, because unfortunately, that's the nature of this industry, that's the nature of the beast. You left yourself out there.
Shit happens.
Though it would seem like kismet, karma almost, that Richard Schaefer and Al Heyman got together to backdoor Oscar to form what became the PBC.
Just for it to fail, just for it to crash and burn. These days, Golden Boy has more stability than the PBC. The PBC got off to a very strong start upon their inception, but over time, it just didn't pan out.
Al Heyman funneled something like 150 to 200 fighters to form what became his PBC, and not a single one among those fighters went on to become a draw.
Like Canelo became a draw. It's not a secret, the numbers don't lie. The biggest draw in American boxing the last 10 years or so has been Canelo, more than any of Al's fighters.
More than every single one of Al's fighters, his ill-gotten gains. You know that of all the promotional outfits in America, out of all the big ones, the PBC is not only the youngest, but it looks to have burned out the fastest.
So when did they form it? 2014, 2015? And where are we now? 2025? That's roughly 10 years?
The Top Rank would be the oldest game in town, the oldest of the big promotional outfits out there now. The second would have to be Golden Boy.
And PBC was formed after them.
This is one of those rare instances where I can't even blame Oscar De La Hoya for taking shots at Richard, all the shots that he used to take at Al.
They basically tag teamed him to form what became the PBC. PBC that's not doing so hot right now.
I could tell that something was wrong years ago when Richard Schaefer decided to leave PBC after leaving Golden Boy for them.
He eventually left the PBC too.
And after leaving the PBC, he was named president of Probellum, which now it's come out, that was really just a front for Daniel Kinahan.
That didn't last long.
That once those U.S. sanctions came down, Richard Schaefer jumped ship, went over to Anthem Sports, whatever the hell that is.
Now seemingly he's back in Canelo Alvarez's corner to do what? I don't know.
But I really can't blame Oscar for taking shots at him. Richard earned it. He more than earned it.
I know a lot about him. You know, I like his fighting style and I like how he boxes and I like how he comes forward. So at the end of the day, you know, I mean, people know me and people know how I like to fight. That's how I like to fight. If he's gonna bring a fight like that to me, great. It's great for the fans. I guarantee you, I'm not gonna back down. I'm not gonna run away from nobody. I'm gonna look for the knockout. Now, you know, I'm not really trying to say I'm gonna knock somebody out. I'm gonna look for the knockout every round. If it happens, great. If it doesn't happen, great too. But I'm definitely gonna punish Anthony Yarde.
Yeah, I don't normally get excited about David Benavidez's fights, but this one promises to be a good one. The one with Anthony Yarde, battle-tested guy, hardened at 175, not past his prime and in his late 30s like Alexander Vazdik.
Not green around the gills like David Morrell.
Anthony is somewhere in the middle, and even though Anthony has faltered every time he stepped up against a Sergey Kovalev or an Artur Beterbiev, those boxers comparatively are better boxers, or they were, than David Benavidez. Sergey Kovalev was a unified champion at light heavyweight.
There's a two-time light heavyweight champion, Artur Beterbiev.
Well, that guy reigned as champion at light heavyweight for something like 6 or 7 years, uninterrupted. Eventually became unified, eventually became undisputed. These are all accolades that David Benavidez does not bring to the table. So when I think about today's David fighting today's Anthony, that's a hell of a fight.
David doesn't punch as hard as those guys do. You know, Sergey Kovalev, I think people forgot, That guy killed a man in the ring.
Artur Beterbiev, for the longest time now, has had the heaviest hands anywhere at or around 175 pounds. These are the guys that beat Anthony Yard. These are the guys that broke him down. And I don't know that David has it in him to do the same.
A unique opportunity for David. On the heels of Canelo Alvarez's latest loss, his lopsided loss to Terence Crawford, a window opens.
A window of opportunity. Many people feel that Canelo Alvarez now, coming off his third professional loss, is circling the drain and will retire soon. If not in 1 or 2 fights, the clock is ticking. Boxing is going to need a new face, particularly for those Mexican-American fans who are looking for something or someone to believe in. Could that someone be David?
You got guys like Bam Rodriguez, who's very talented, very accomplished too, more than David, but Americans don't really watch the lower weights, so that kind of holds him back. Virgil.
Ryan Garcia's a train wreck. Ryan Garcia is more social media influencer than pugilist, and Virgil is a more serious guy.
At least more serious than Ryan, but it doesn't help his case that he's 27 years old and he has yet to fight for a full title. I mean, for a perspective, by age 27, Canelo had already fought Austin Trout, Erislandy Lara, Floyd Mayweather, Miguel Cotto, Amir Khan, and Gennady Golovkin once.
All by age 27, the same age that Virgil is now. So while Virgil is a serious contender and a serious fighter, that guy's missing something, whereas David's got a little bit more traction, more marquee value, I'd say, than Virgil Ortiz. For better or worse, people know him, and if he can keep fighting and keep winning, you never really know.
He finally wised up and made a decision to work with Turkey LL Sheik. Initially, he said he wanted to focus on staying in America and focus on being based out of Las Vegas.
Didn't seem like he would get his passport out to ever box in Saudi for Turkey. What could have changed his mind? 2 things. Abysmal pay-per-view numbers in America, because he's been on pay-per-view 2 or 3 times, and I don't imagine he sold very much, in tandem with
money. Turkey offered him a lot of money. More money than he stands to make staying here.
The light heavyweight division is an international division to where all the big fights and all the big names, save David, are from other countries.
And unless you're generating a lot of money in yours, fat chance that you get them to come to you.
Many times did you hear me say that? Those Brits over there generate very good money all on their own, to where I don't think David will be able to bring them to America. The only way to get those fights is to work with Turkey. And so, here we are.
Because to a lot of people, Canelo Alvarez may be on his way out.
It's a golden opportunity for David Benavidez to maybe, just maybe, turn some of those Canelo fans into Benavidez fans.
They're always going to like Canelo more than they like David, but they might like David more than somebody else.